The air inside the dimly lit auction hall was thick with tension, a place where money held more power than morality. Men in tailored suits sat in plush leather chairs, their expressions unreadable, their pockets deep enough to buy whatever or whomever they desired. Sheikh Rafiq Al-Mansoor leaned back, his dark eyes scanning the stage with an air of indifference. He had seen it all before. Deals sealed with a nod, lives bought and sold like luxury cars. It was a game of power, and he had always been a winner. Tonight, however, he wasn't here for business. Tonight, he was looking for something personal, a child, not through marriage, not through fleeting affairs that led to complications. No attachments, no drama, just an heir, one that would carry his legacy. He needed a woman, but not just any woman. She had to be strong, healthy, and above all, discreet. Someone who would give him a child and then disappear. The auctioneer's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. Next, we have something truly special. A rare find, gentlemen. A single mother. Rafiq barely lifted an eyebrow as a young woman was led onto the stage. Unlike the others before her, she didn't shrink in fear, nor did she try to look appealing for the bidders. Her chin was high, her back straight, though he could see the tremor in her fingers as she clenched them at her sides. She wasn't the type he had expected. Golden brown skin, deep, expressive eyes that held defiance even in the face of uncertainty. She wasn't dressed in luxury, but rather in something simple, something that told him she hadn't belonged to wealth for a long time, if ever. Her name is Amira, the auctioneer continued, flipping through the papers. 24 years old, excellent health, and most intriguing of all, a mother, a strong maternal instinct, gentleman, perfect for those who seek a proper heir. Rafiq narrowed his gaze. A mother? That complicated things. He wasn't interested in raising another man's child, but something about her made him pause. Was it the way she stood, refusing to break, or the way her eyes burned with something dangerously close to hatred? The bidding started, voices calling out numbers with an almost lazy arrogance. But when Rafiq raised a hand, silence fell. His reputation spoke for itself. When he wanted something, no one dared challenge him. Sold, the auctioneer declared. For the first time, Amira's mask cracked, her breath hitched, and her fingers curled tighter. She had expected someone to win, but not him. Not this man with unreadable eyes and a presence that demanded submission without a word. As she was led off the stage toward him, her mind raced. She had done this for a reason. But now, facing the man who had just claimed her, she wondered if she had made a mistake. She hadn't told them everything, and when Rafiq found out, everything would change. I'll continue your story, deepening the plot and developing the characters while maintaining suspense and emotional depth. Rafiq watched Amira carefully as she stood before him, her posture stiff, her gaze guarded. She was beautiful, yes, but that wasn't what intrigued him. It was the fire in her eyes, the quiet resistance in the way she held herself. Most women in her position would have begged, pleaded, or tried to charm their way into his favor. But she did none of that. You belong to me now, he said, his voice calm but firm. Amira's jaw tightened. No one owns me. A flicker of amusement crossed his face, but he let the words go. He had expected resistance, but not so soon. His patience was thin, yet something about her made him hold back. She had been desperate enough to be here, yet she was not acting like someone who had surrendered. Why? Come, he said, turning toward the exit. Your life changes tonight. She hesitated for a brief moment before following. The weight of what had just happened settled on her, but she reminded herself why she was here. This was not just about her. The ride to his estate was silent. Rafiq sat beside her in the back of the luxury car, his expression unreadable as he scrolled through his phone. She stole a glance at him, trying to understand what kind of man had just taken control of her future. He was powerful. That much was clear, not just because of his wealth, but the way he carried himself, like someone who never had to ask twice for anything. But he didn't know the truth. Not yet. When they arrived at his estate, Amira couldn't hide her shock. The mansion was massive, almost unreal in its beauty. Marble floors gleamed under golden chandeliers, the scent of fresh jasmine lingering in the air. She had grown up in small, overcrowded apartments, struggling for every dollar. Now, she was standing in a palace. A woman in a sleek black dress approached them. Sir, your room has been prepared. Will she be staying in the East Wing? Amira's stomach twisted. The way they spoke about her, as if she were an object, a decision to be made, sent a wave of anger through her. No, Rafiq said, his gaze locked onto hers. She stays close. I want to keep an eye on her. He was testing her, she realized, watching for a reaction. She wouldn't give him one. Follow me, he ordered. She did, her steps slow but steady. Inside, her heart pounded. She had spent the last few years fighting to survive, raising her son with everything she had, and now she had walked into the lion's den. As the door closed behind them, silence filled the room. Rafiq turned to her, his expression unreadable. Why did you do this? He asked suddenly. She knew what he meant. Why had she put herself up for auction? Why had she agreed to this? She lifted her chin. For my son. Something flickered in his eyes, but it was gone too fast for her to read. You expect me to believe that? It's the truth. He studied her, as if searching for cracks in her story. Then, without another word, he turned and walked toward the window, looking out at the vast gardens below. You will give me a child, he said, his voice quiet but firm. That was the agreement. Amira swallowed, her hands curling into fists. She had expected this. She had prepared herself, but the truth weighed heavily on her chest. There was something he didn't know, something that would change everything. She already had his child, and he had no idea. The words sat on the edge of her tongue, but she couldn't say them. Not yet. Not until she knew what kind of man he truly was. Because if he found out the truth, she didn't know what he would do. The silence between them stretched, thick with unspoken truths. Amira's heartbeat pounded in her ears as she stared at Rafiq's back. The weight of her secret pressed down on her, making it hard to breathe. She had to tell him. Sooner or later, he would find out. But the fear of his reaction kept the words trapped in her throat. Rafiq finally turned, his gaze sharp and calculating. You seem nervous, he observed. Are you regretting your decision? She met his eyes, forcing herself to stay calm. No, I just, I wasn't expecting this. He studied her, his expression unreadable. You weren't expecting what? That you would be like this, she admitted, cold, detached. A shadow crossed his face, and for a brief second, she thought she saw something human underneath his hardened exterior. But then it was gone. This is a business arrangement, he reminded her. Nothing more. Amira let out a slow breath. Maybe now was the time. Maybe she had to take the risk. She swallowed hard. Rafiq, there's something I need to tell you. Before she could continue, the door burst open. A man in a suit rushed in, his face pale. Sir, there's something you need to see. Rafiq's expression darkened. It better be important. The man hesitated, glancing at Amira. It's about her. Amira's stomach dropped. Rafiq's eyes flickered to her before he strode out of the room, leaving her no choice but to follow. They moved quickly through the grand hallways, her pulse racing with every step. When they entered his study, a large screen flickered to life, displaying security footage from earlier that day. And there he was, her son, a small boy with curly dark hair and wide brown eyes, clutching his worn-out teddy bear as he stood outside. The estate gates, Amira gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Adam. Rafiq's body went rigid. Slowly, he turned to face her, his expression unreadable. Is he yours? Her throat felt dry. Yes. The silence that followed was suffocating. His voice, when he finally spoke, was dangerously low. And is he mine? Amira's vision blurred with unshed tears. She had tried to keep this secret for so long, tried to protect her son from a world that could be cruel. But now, there was no escape. Yes, she whispered. A sharp breath left Rafiq's lips, his hands clenched into fists, his jaw tightening. The revelation had shaken him, but whether it was anger or something else, she couldn't tell. You lied to me, he said finally. I was scared, she admitted. I didn't know what you would do. Rafiq exhaled sharply, turning away. He ran a hand through his hair, something she had never seen him do before. The powerful, controlled billionaire was suddenly human. All this time, he murmured, I had a son, and I didn't even know. Amira felt her chest tighten. I wasn't trying to keep him from you. I didn't know how to tell you. He turned back to her, and for the first time, she saw something raw in his eyes. Where is he now? At the gates, the man interrupted. Should we bring him in? Rafiq didn't hesitate. Immediately. Minutes later, Adam was led inside. His tiny frame looked even smaller in the grand entrance of the mansion. He clutched his teddy bear tighter, his big eyes darting around nervously. Amira rushed to him, dropping to her knees. Adam, baby, are you okay? He nodded, but his gaze had already drifted past her, to Rafiq. Rafiq stood frozen, his expression unreadable. Slowly, he lowered himself to the child's level. Adam blinked up at him. Are you the man from the picture? Amira's breath hitched. She had never shown Adam a picture of Rafiq, but he must have found one somewhere. Rafiq hesitated. then spoke in a voice softer than she had ever heard from him. What picture? Adam fidgeted with his bear. Mommy had one. She used to look at it when she thought I was sleeping. Amira's cheeks burned. She hadn't realized Adam had noticed. Rafiq's gaze flickered to her before returning to the boy. And do you know who I am? Adam shrugged. I think you're my dad. The room went silent. For the first time in his life, Rafiq had no words. He had spent years believing emotions were a weakness, that attachments led to nothing but pain. But now, staring into the eyes of the child he never knew existed, something shifted inside him. He had spent his life chasing power. But what did it all mean if he had missed this? Slowly, carefully, he reached out a hand. Would you like to stay here, Adam? The boy hesitated, glancing at Amira. She gave him a reassuring nod, tears brimming in her eyes. Adam looked back at Rafiq, and after a moment, placed his small hand in his father's. Rafiq let out a shaky breath. It wasn't just an agreement. It was a beginning. He looked at Amira, something unreadable in his gaze. You and I have a lot to talk about. She nodded. Yes, we do. For the first time, the walls between them had started to crack. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Maybe it was just the start of something neither of them had expected.